Kråkan, also known as Kråkan, so welcome to Yacc, yet another Crowcast where I pick a game, I play it for a week, and then I'll talk about it. This week's game is F-Zero for the Super Nintendo, released in 1991, developed by Nintendo EAD and published by Nintendo. And also there'll be spoilers up ahead, just so you know, but first a little backstory. This game I watched others play when the Super Nintendo or SNES Mini came out. And I normally don't play racing games, but this is one of the exceptions because it was actually a launch title for the Super Nintendo. I didn't know this. So as you start up the game, you're prompted to a screen where you can select Grand Prix, Practice, or Records. So Grand Prix is you select the hovercraft and you enter a league or difficulty from beginner class to standard to expert to master. And I think master is one of those difficulties that unlocks later in the game when you completed enough stuff, I guess. Practice is exactly what it sounds like. It's a practice run of any track, and you can also compete against a rival. Records are just, the records of each run you've done on a track. So the different cups in this game or leagues are Knight, Queen, and King, and each league or course have 5 levels in them. So the Knight League has the simpler levels, the Queen has the medium, and the King has the harder tracks. So when starting out Grand Prix or Practice, you are prompted to select between 4 different characters. You have Captain Falcon, which is the driver of the Blue Falcon. It's a blue ship. You have Dr. Robert Stewart. It has a yellow hovercraft called the Golden Fox. You have Pico. He has a green hovercraft called the Wild Goose. And you have Samurai Goro, which has a pink hovercraft called the Fire Stingray. And each of these ships have different stats from engine units to max power to max speed and weight. And there's also a curve underneath the ship, so to speak, so you know how acceleration goes versus max speed and whatnot. So if I read the stats or graphs correctly, Samurai Goro has the pink ship guy. I guess the Fire Stingray has the fastest acceleration and the overall highest top speed, but his ship is not that maneuverable. So there are different, tactics to play a game. It's also recommended to have certain drivers for certain tracks, but overall, Captain Falcon's Blue Falcon, the blue ship, is overall the most middle ground to everything. It's like picking Mario in Mario Kart, it's a balanced kind of player. So the reason for the limited amount of selectable hovercraft is due to the memory of, or the size of the cartridge. So, but there are other hovercrafts on the tracks, but they're like monochrome and simpler colors. Generic is a good word to explain it. So when you selected a hovercraft, you are prompted to play the game. So the B button accelerates, and try to avoid hitting walls because that will drain your power meter. And once the power meter becomes 0, the ship explodes. But you have 2 extra lives, and I think you get an extra life if you finished first. You can also refill the power in these stretches which has purple ground or pink ground. And after completing a track or a lap on a track, I should say, you get a boost. So you get a boost for each track, which makes your craft get a little faster. You boost by holding or pressing the A button. The Y button brakes, and the L and R trigger makes you do sharper turns when you turn. And as I said before, the track difficulties accelerate from Knight, Queen to King League. And just as in Mario Kart or Super Mario Kart, you need to get first in a lap to get the most points for each race. So when I started out playing this week, I picked Knight League and beginner difficulty. And the first level is Mute City, and it's good music, very simple track, one sharp turn. And there are some areas that slows you down on this track, like dirt, I believe, or some kind of uneven ground. So Big Blue is the second level and has good music and one of the more recognizable track from the F-Zero series. So the track is surrounded by water high up in the sky, and just as the previous level, there are some areas with dirt that slows you down, and this is where I encountered my first death. I kept on bouncing between walls and eventually the ship exploded. So it's kind of a neat little effect. The hovercraft kind of explode and it smokes and fire, and a camera kind of pans out to see the overall view of the stage. Kind of a cool little effect. So the third level is Sandy Ocean, and it's a bit like Big Blue, but it's instead of water, it's sand. So I think this game just takes place on different planets and whatnot, therefore explaining the different landscapes. So in this level, I got to use the L&R trigger to make sharper turns, and it also helped to brake a bit before for a sharp curve, because some of the later levels there's like 90-degree turns and it's kind of crazy, but you learn as you play how to navigate, so it's not a big deal. And usually the Night League, as I said before, is one of the more, or has the more simpler tracks, while it escalates as you play along on the other cups. So the fourth level is Deathwind Wand, and it's a green water level with some huge and a giant skeleton in the background, like a huge animal. It's kind of cool. You don't know what this animal is, and well, it's just a neat effect. So the gimmick with this level is that there are winds that push your hovercraft to either side, I guess. And this level also has like a speed boost, very similar to Mario Kart as well. So the fifth level is Silence, and it's a track that has mines on it, so if you run into them, they explode. I don't think you die from a mine, but they hurt you a lot. So this level introduced the 90-degree turns, I believe, and also has these jump pads. And I didn't know when I played this game for the first time or whatever that these jump pads, you can actually kind of regulate how far you jump. If you press up on the D-pad, you make a longer jump. If you press down, you kind of maintain your speed. And in the later levels, it's actually expected of you to know this mechanics, because some levels can't be completed without making longer jumps, because, well, you crash into something else and explode. So gameplay. Race against the other racers and try to win all the leagues and become the F-Zero champion. Control. The D-pad moves the craft around. The L&R trigger the bumpers. They make your craft turn or tilt in a direction, and it makes you also do sharper turns with the D-pad. A boosts, so you get one boost for clearing each lap. The B button accelerates, and the Y button brakes, and the start button pauses. Graphics. This game used Mode 7 just like Super Mario Kart, so it takes a 2D image and warp it into looking like a 3D one, and it conveys the speed of the hovercraft really well. Another thing that I like about the hovercraft sprite is that when you tilt your card a bit with the left or right trigger or bumper, it kind of sparks a bit when you turn, because the metal is hitting the track, which is a cool little detail. It overall looks pretty good. Sound and music. Yumiko Kaneki and Nasato Ishida made the music for this game, and the tracks are very hummable, very rememberable, very good tracks. I can recommend, look them up on YouTube. Easter egg, secrets and glitches. So when this game was launched, there's a little cool little detail. It contained an instruction manual, and it also contained a comic book which explained a little bit about the backstory of the game. It's like the 2050 or something, where the rich people of the world are kind of bored, so they invent this death sport with hovercrafts raised above the city, like really high up in the sky. And at the beginning, people didn't like these races, but eventually integrated into the society, and now it's like think of it like a Formula 1 kind of racing game, but with hovercrafts that goes like way faster. So yeah, it's kind of a cool little detail there. In conclusion, I wrote, yes, try it, but it's not my cup of tea. I like the music and I like the sense of speed of the hovercraft, but sadly I'm not good at racing games. On the negative end, it's just single player, no multiplayer, and playing anything on the export or master mode in any league setting is something that I can't do. One little mistake and you have to restart the game from the beginning. So my recommendation will be to listen to the music and play Mario Kart instead. I also know that this is one of the launch games for the Super Nintendo, and I didn't know this until I did some research this week, but it's kind of a cool thing. Without this game, you probably wouldn't have Mario Kart and other racers to boot. So yeah, I mean, try it, but it's not my cup of tea, so I can't really 100% recommend it. So anyway, thanks for listening and or watching, and take care.